Welcome back to Movies TV Mad, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, fellow Doctor Who fans, and welcome to Wednesday's edition of the Doctor Who Daily. The timeless child, the timeless children, the good and the bad and the indifferent. Let's begin. This has got to be the most controversial storyline in Doctor Who history, the breaking of Doctor Who canon. Now, whatever you feel about this, your feelings and thoughts are valid, whether you think it's the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. I'm not here to shit all over it. I'm not here to throw hearts up Chibnall's backside either, but I am here to give a balanced discussion and opinion. Now, I have given you my limited brief thoughts about the Timeless Child, but we're going to break it down. I'll tell you why the Timeless Child and the Timeless Children episode is problematic for a lot of hardcore Doctor Who fans. First of all, right, from the word dot, we have met every single Doctor, gotten to know them and decided whether we like or hate that version of the Doctor. Again, any of those feelings you have about those Doctors are absolutely valid. You pay your license fee, you buy the memorabilia, the merch. You have every right for a constructive opinion, but not a toxic one, as far as I'm concerned. So, even John Hurt's Doctor, we got to know him in the Day of the Doctor. He's a bona fide, valid version of the Doctor, and that's great, and that's fine, and that's okay. Now, the Timeless Child, and in the Timeless Children episode, when the Doctor's in the Matrix and the Master is narrating all of this, we find out that there's multiple versions of the Doctor that we've never gotten to know. We meet the first, is it the first version of the Doctor? I mean, Tech Tae-Yoon meets a child, which is the first Doctor, but it's not really the first Doctor because she could have already regenerated multiple amounts of times. So a lot of people had this feeling that the Doctor being, was it a young Asian girl or a young black girl, I can't remember, that triggered a lot of the fan base. That's not very valid because you're angry because of the gender and the cultural background of the originality of the character. So I can't really say, yeah, I understand your frustration, because I don't. Clearly, Chibnall did that for I suppose, representation and inclusive reasons, to make a point. Because one of the accusations against Doctor Who that it hasn't represented women very well, and it hasn't represented minorities very well. Now, that's another discussion for another time. We're talking about, the validity of the Timeless Child. Right. So we don't know if that version, which is the first version in the flashback that we see, is the first ever Doctor, because that's who Tech Tae-Yoon discovers. And so we see multiple versions of the character constantly regenerating, because literally Tech Tae-Yoon, once she discovers that this being can't die, and this being just constantly regenerates into men, women, boys, girls, is testing this out. And so the problem here is, first of all, you're changing the canon. Now, that shouldn't really be the bigger issue. The bigger issue should be that there are multiple versions of this character that we're not ever going to get to know. Now, the good thing with this concept is you could have multiple spin-off shows getting to know other versions of the Doctor that we've never seen. Now, people, I think, who don't want to embrace this concept will never embrace this concept. Now, for me, I don't know completely how to feel about any of this, because we haven't seen the completion of the story arc. But also, I don't actually believe that Jodie's Doctor, or any version of the Doctor, is the Timeless Child. I think someone, maybe the Master, has corrupted the Matrix, and in fact maybe the Master is the Timeless Child. It could even be Jo Martin's Doctor, who is the Timeless Child in some way, separating herself from being the Doctor. It could be anything. We simply don't know at this point. But I think one of the problems the fan base has had with it is that there are multiple versions of the Doctor that we just don't know. It also changes the element of the Time Lords and Gallifrey. And I mean, the hugest thing, of course, they're saying that the Doctor actually doesn't originate from Gallifrey. The Doctor now is not a Gallifreyan. We always believed the Doctor was from Gallifrey and the Time Lord. But it seems that Tecteun, well, it does seem, we don't know, but from the outside looking in, from this whole explanation and narration from the Master, is that the Doctor isn't from Gallifrey, and the Doctor has regenerated so many times before, could be hundreds of times. We simply don't know. And they, Tecteun steals the DNA and gives it to other people from Gallifrey and creates the Time Lord Society. It creates an elite culture. Of course, this is very political commentary, looking at, well, you can look at the Empire invading Australia and taking that country away from the Aborigines. You can look at the Empire invading America and taking that country away from Native Americans. That's the kind of commentary he's trying to say. So what do I think about this? Well, considering I am disgusted that the Empire invaded America and invaded Australia and took that country away from those people and killed so many Native Americans and Aborigines and allows those people to live in the backgrounds of those countries, I don't agree with it anyway. So I don't actually think there's an issue with Chibnall making this commentary, but of course a lot of imperialists will have issues. Of course, this becomes very political, very muddy and very complicated when you do these kind of things. Was there any need for him to do it? Well, he feels there's a need because clearly he's a very, very left storyteller. I mean, I will tell you that most people who work on the revival of Doctor Who are socialists anyway. And let's get that clear. And my politics is absolutely left. Not far left, but definitely left rather than right. Should politics be brought in to Doctor Who and entertainment? Well, it has done. The issue now is, as I've explained before, that they put their size 10 Doc Martens on, they clumper things, they don't know about nuance, about treading carefully. They kind of want to offend people. They want you to sound like a racist, homophobic bigot. That's what they want. That's why they do it. They're winding the situation up so they can show that straight white males are actually bigoted. And there is an agenda here, and I'm not going to lie to you about that. But on the other hand, it is a very, very interesting storyline because it changes everything. As Sacha Dhawan's Master said at the beginning of season 12, everything you think you know is a lie. I like that. I like that. I like the Doctor not knowing everything, especially the Doctor not knowing everything. And I love the performance from Jodie, how when all of a sudden she realises that everything she thought she knew about herself and everything Bill Hartnell thought he knew about himself and Patrick Troughton, Pertwee, Baker, Davison, Baker again, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, John Hurt's Doctor, Tennant's Doctor, Smith's Doctor, Capaldi's Doctor, now Jodie's Doctor. That we know those versions of the Doctor so well, and all of a sudden their history is a bit more of a mystery. Where are the Doctor's origins now? Will Chibnall ever delve into this? Will we ever find out the answers to this? Will he just leave it open for the next showrunner, which is Russell T Davies? I would be very, very surprised if he puts this on RTD's lap, and I'd be very surprised that if Davies even wants that on his lap. Whoever took over was gonna say to him, you have to bookend what you've done because we don't want to deal with it. It's too much trouble. I think this is why he's lost his job. The reaction to it was I think they thought that they would get a negative reaction to this, and I think they were okay with that. But I think the response was so wholeheartedly negative that people are not going to embrace this. I think even the Revival fans have an issue with it. Some fans think it's okay, but I do think it's an interesting storyline. But once you get as political as Chibnall does, and by the way, being from the left part of the political argument, I like what Chibnall's referencing here, because as I just said, I don't agree with the invasions of the Americas and Australia and what's been done to those natives. I don't. And I think it's good when someone actually says something about it. So what happens here is basically they've stolen the Doctor's DNA and they're pretending it's all natural, right? And the Doctor always felt that the Time Lords were always the Time Lords and always able to regenerate, and they were just observers trying to keep the peace in the universe. But they are stealers of technology. They are thieves. They are frauds. And now a lot of alt-left people believe the elite system, especially of straight white males, have done this through the ages. So he's really making huge commentary here, and this is why it's confrontational and controversial. And I think I understand elements of the fandom being frustrated about this, because as I've said in the past, every time you have an opposing political view, it's going to upset somebody else with another opposing political view. This is why my father, when we were growing up at the dinner table, when all his brothers and sisters came with their kids, two things we don't discuss at the dinner table are religion and politics. It's too toxic, it's too triggering, and nobody's ever going to win. I'm not going to convince you to come over to the left, and you're not going to convince me to come over to the right. We've just got to respect you're right and I'm left. That's it. And we move on, right? And this is the problem with social media when people argue about politics. Why are you arguing about politics for? You're not going to convince me. I'm not going to convince you. Let's just love one another, right? And things like this just cause arguments and bad feeling. But I understand what Chibnall's attempting to do, just like why he brought in a writer to do Rosa, because he wants to represent, he wants to educate kids to how black people were treated in America. Now, it's important for people to know this type of history, but it's like what happened with the Nazis in the Second World War. The Americans in Hollywood like to remind us again and again what people were put through in the Second World War. It's important that we know, but we mustn't just ferment in it. We must move on. We must say, yes, this must never happen again. This is an example of how we never treat any minority, any group of people because of their different. It's wrong, and we move on. By constantly going on and boring on and on about it, it becomes negative. Instead of showing off the successes, the greatness of humanity, which Russell T Davies does a lot, by the way, where, it becomes too negative, and, again, the discourse is there. Instead of celebrating Doctor Who, we're all arguing with each other because we all have different opinions about it. So the negative elements are having different versions of the Doctor that we've never got to know. That's the one thing. Saying that Hartnell's Doctor is no longer the first Doctor. For me, he's still a version of the Doctor, a very valid version of the Doctor. So that's cool. It's not like any version of the Doctor is being deleted here, but I understand if you come from the classic era and you're proud of Hartnell being your first Doctor, why you would be upset about this. But until we see this storyline explained, and he needs to explain it. Now, the frightening moment in The Timeless Children, if you're someone who wants this to be explained like I do, is when Jo Martin's Doctor says, aren't you still the same person you always were, even with this revelation? And the Doctor works out, yes, she's still the same person, which she is. But she's been lied to. She's been living a lie. She thinks all these years she thought she was from Gallifrey, that she was a Time Lord, and that was a natural progression through the ages. And now she finds out those people weren't special. They had no right to have the ability to regenerate because they stole it from her. Imagine if that had been done to you. And this is commentary to what's happened to the natives in America and Australia and many other countries. And in a way, it's interesting commentary, but as I say, it's also very divisive and it's going to upset people. And the problem is, you can do this if you're Davies, because if you come from a successful Doctor Who era, people aren't going to be as angry. Davies made a lot of controversial commentary and people just didn't fall in about it because he's very clever with the nuance he uses when he's talking about stuff. I mean, there's that episode in season 3. I forgot what it's called now, when they're in they're in the cars and they're stuck in traffic and the world has become polluted, and this is supposed to be the same, is it supposed to be the same future as New Earth back in season 2? So, you know, that is commentary about pollution. And there's a lot of people who don't want to accept that our world is being polluted and our world is going to be destroyed if we don't do something about it. And Russell T Davies writes this amazing episode with some amazing commentary, and some people rejected the episode, but there wasn't that much controversy. Davies knew what he was doing. In the way people like Chibnall and, I suppose, extreme left writers, who most of them are these days, who have been brought into the industry. In fact, they are, you know, they are advising leaders of the most important, you know, businesses, industries these days. And sometimes that can be a frightening thing when you feel that some of these people are not, you know, not thinking on all cylinders, if I can say it politely. So this kind of commentary can be problematic and divisive, and there are the negatives of the Timeless Children. So what is the positive of the Timeless Child? What is the positive of the Timeless Children? Well, it creates a backstory we never knew. Now, there's been one cardinal rule for every Doctor Who fan: we don't want to know too much about the Doctor. He's a mystery. For fuck's sake, the show's called Doctor Who for a reason, because nobody knows who the fuck this person is. We know the Doctor originated on Gallifrey and he ran away from Gallifrey with his granddaughter Susan, and that's it. No one's really been that interested in delving into the mysteries of the Doctor, although Moffat was obsessed with the Doctor Who, Doctor Who, Doctor Who, Doctor Who. Moffat was very obsessed with that, but he never really dug away trying to show us an original story, because that's the whole point. We don't know his origin. We don't need to know his origin. It's like James Bond. We don't know what he did as a young boy. Things like that. And that's the way people like it. Now, I like origin stories. I like unearthing mysteries and conspiracy theories and things like that. Chibnall here, it looks like, is trying to create a very, I dare say interesting, because I'm going to upset people, but as I said, everyone has their own truth and nobody's truth is universal. I do feel that it is very interesting to give this, you know, this character, the Doctor, this kind of origin where everything the Doctor thought he or she knew about themselves is a lie, and what we thought has been a lie as well. So I find that interesting. It kind of expands my thinking of the Doctor and thinks, wow. Now, I've already said I don't think the Doctor is the Timeless Child anyway. I don't think Moffat's brave enough to say this is the Doctor's origin story and we're leaving it at that. That would be very, very controversial, because this would leave the problem at Russell T Davies' door. He would have two options: to clean it up and change elements of it and say, he wasn't the Timeless Child anyway. He or she wasn't the Timeless Child anyway. Or he just forgets about it, just ignores it's there and just creeps away from it like a kid who makes a mess in a house and creeps away and, you know, doesn't take responsibility for what they've done. So I do feel that Chibnall will bookend this storyline and it will never be dealt with again. It's as simple as that. His era has been problematic, you know, and I've underlined why I feel creatively his era has been problematic. No characterizations for his companions. He failed Yaz, he failed Graham, and he failed what's his Jesus? Not what's the other guy's name? Oh my God, I forgot the other kid's name. Never mind. He failed his three companions. There's no Ryan. Yeah, Ryan, Graham, and Yaz were underdeveloped. They were like just extras. Now, I don't know if Yaz is going to get better development now. It's just her and the Doctor. and recurring companions that we haven't met before? I hope so. But, you know, that's his mistake. And also, he hasn't really given his doctor, Jodie Whittaker, any characterizations apart from her loving custard creams. Very problematic. This is so stunningly a huge misstep, considering this is the man who worked on Torchwood, who characterized the characters really well when he was running it. His first season of Broadchurch is sensational. Unfortunately, his identity politics ruined the rest of the seasons, I think the second and third season. But his first season was absolutely wonderful, and his characters had great characterizations. So it's shocking that his companions and his doctor are so underdeveloped. So when you come from such an underdeveloped, bland version of Doctor Who, and then you try and do something like The Timeless Children, not many people are going to support you in doing that. But how I'll just finish off on the positive is we don't know what the answers to these questions are. And that's why I'm thinking that season 13 and the specials next year will be a lot better, more interesting and exciting than we ever thought they could be. And I think the storyline will be explained, and that the Doctor is absolutely certainly not the Timeless Child. Am I right? Am I wrong? We'll have to find out as episodes of season 13 drop. 6 episodes continuing one story, then 3 specials celebrating the BBC's centennial year as well. I'm excited at least for them, tentatively, and we'll see what he's got up his sleeve. This has been the Doctor Who Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more Doctor Who Daily. Comment, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow for even more Doctor Who Daily. Until then, goodbye.